Phew. Why are you sighing like that, Inseop? Is something bothering you? Manager CHA, who had just bought a bottle of water from the convenience store and got into the driver's seat, turned to look at Inseop. No, nothing. Come on, your face is full of worry. I said, there's nothing. Inseop rubbed his face with the palm of his hand as he said this. Although he said there was no worry, he was currently swimming in a sea of concern. That day, when Li Wuyan had asked him if he would sign a long-term contract, the words had weighed on Inseop's chest like a stone. He hoped it was just a polite, comforting gesture, but when CEO Kim handed him a piece of paper the next day at the office, Inseop had to accept that it was serious. When he first joined the company, his contract term was for 1 year, essentially a temporary position. Knowing he wouldn't last a few months, Inseop hadn't paid much attention. But the paper CEO Kim handed him had an unbelievable 3-year term printed on it. This was the first time Li Wuyan had personally stepped forward to make an official contract with a manager. CEO Kim, handing over the contract, looked incredulous. The terms were excellent: full insurance, generous bonuses, and even vacation expenses, a dream contract. But Inseop couldn't bring himself to sign it right away. The 3-month period he had initially thought of was almost over. If he didn't find Li Wuyan's weakness within that time, he planned to quietly leave Korea after sending photos of Li's numerous relationships to the press. But a 3-year contract out of the blue. Inseop quietly handed the contract back to CEO Kim, saying he'd think about it. Manager CHA, who had been watching from the side, told him to really think it over, only to get a glare from CEO Kim. Li Wuyan, who had been sitting casually on the desk, smiled and said, Inseop, you saved my life twice, so you have to take responsibility. No, actually, 3 times. Regret washed over Inseop like a tide. He thought maybe he shouldn't have saved Li Wuyan's life. Of course, if he went back in time, he would do the same thing, but for now, he felt that way. When Inseop sighed again, Manager CHA, watching him, opened the bottle of water he had bought and handed it to Inseop. Is your hand okay? When do you have to go back to the hospital? They said to come back in 2 weeks. There's no major problem as long as I keep the cast on properly. That's a relief. Saying this, Manager CHA handed the water to Li Wuyan, who was sitting in the back. Li received it with both hands and thanked him politely. Manager CHA had decided to be Li Wuyan's road manager, combining the opinions that Inseop couldn't possibly manage him with both hands injured and that Li didn't want any other manager but Inseop. After getting a promise that he would only be used as a substitute driver, Manager CHA took the wheel. In practice, he had been working comfortably for several days, only focusing on driving. He also planned to negotiate a special bonus with CEO Kim for this. Feeling good about the bonus, Manager CHA hummed and turned on the radio. Li Wuyan, who had been reading a script in the back, frowned and looked up. Inseop quickly turned off the radio and shook his head. Li Wuyan disliked any noise, including the radio, when he was reading a script because it interfered with his concentration. Not knowing this, Manager CHA cluelessly asked, why, and turned the radio back on. As dance music filled the car, Manager CHA hummed and started driving. Li Wuyan just glanced at the back of Manager CHA's head and said nothing. Can I play a CD I brought? Inseop asked cautiously. Sure, go ahead. Inseop opened the glove compartment, took out a CD, and played it. It was a selection of songs Li Wuyan liked. As quiet music filled the van, Manager CHA clicked his tongue and murmured, music like this doesn't make driving fun. You have a unique taste, Inseop. What kind of guy listens to music like this? Inseop awkwardly laughed and glanced at Li Wuyan in the back. Li seemed to ignore Manager CHA completely and continued reading his script, unlike the casual conversations he would have when alone with Inseop. CEO Kim's remark that Manager CHA and Li Wuyan didn't quite get along seemed true. What happened with the horse riding scene? Are they reshooting? Do they have time for that? Manager CHA asked. They'll probably edit it appropriately. I did fall off, so the reality might be better that way. Turning the script page, Li Wuyun answered indifferently. Later, when the director called to say the horse he had ridden had broken its leg and had to be euthanized, Li Wuyun struggled to swallow the words, "Well, that's good." He instead managed to say, "That's unfortunate." The director apologized, saying the horse had seemed unwell from the start. Li Wuyun had briefly covered his phone's mouthpiece and jokingly asked CEO Kim if they should sue those in charge. CEO Kim managed to calm him down, saying it would make them look bad. Even after hanging up, Li grumbled about suing, making CEO Kim anxious. Today's gathering was arranged by the director to apologize to Li Wuyun and to boost morale as the drama's airing date approached. Muttering that the director must be thoughtless for not giving him even an hour of rest, Li Wuyun ended the call. CEO Kim, sensing that Li Wuyun was increasingly showing his bad temper, felt cold sweat. Watching Li these days felt like climbing an active volcano with magma boiling inside, as he confessed tearfully to manager CHA during a drinking session. "Is the horse okay?" Insiep, unaware of the situation, asked cautiously. He felt guilty about the horse that had fallen when Li Wuyun lost his balance. Manager CHA replied, "Oh, didn't you know? It died." Li Wuyun, from the back, added nonchalantly, "Its leg was broken. They euthanize horses with broken legs." "What? That's ridiculous. They could have healed it. Couldn't they have put it in a cast?" Insiep exclaimed, shocked. In disbelief and not wanting to accept it, Insiep felt crushed by the news of Jenny's death, the horse that had encouraged him by tapping his shoulder. When a horse breaks its leg, it's the end. They can't lie down like humans. They get secondary infections and suffer more, Li Wuyun explained. "But how could they euthanize it?" Insiep's voice almost broke into tears. He turned completely to face Li Wuyun, shouting with a strained voice, "How could they do that? It wasn't the horse's fault. It just fell. Everyone makes mistakes, even people. How?" "It's better this way," Li Wuyun cut him off. "You don't know if it's better or not. With proper care, it might have survived," Insiep protested, so agitated he felt he could take care of the horse himself. Reaching from the back, Li Wuyun gently patted Insiep's cheek with his cold fingers. The touch made Insiep freeze in shock, turning pale. "It's better to accept the things we can't change. There's nothing we can do about it. It's not something we can choose or influence." Li Wuyun's tone was calm, devoid of any particular emotion. It wasn't his usual way of speaking, where he would smile slyly and make biting remarks, nor was it his polite and friendly facade for the public. Manager CHA, finding it unusual, glanced at Li Wuyun through the rearview mirror. When their eyes met in the mirror, Li Wuyun winked playfully. "I really don't like that guy." Manager CHA shuddered as if he'd seen something he shouldn't have and turned the steering wheel. "So, I guess you'll be having a drink until late tonight. Should I wait nearby?" Noticing that Insiep was feeling down about the conversation, Manager CHA asked in a deliberately cheerful voice. "You should go home, sir. I'll drive." Insiep wasn't in the mood for drinking. "Oh, come on. You're not up for it yet. Have a drink and relax. If the director specifically asked for you, he probably plans to treat you. Oh, I want some free drinks too." Thinking of free drinks made Manager CHA lick his lips without realizing it. "Go instead of me." "I'll wait in the car," Insiep said seriously. Manager CHA shook his head, saying it was okay. It wouldn't be a lie to say he was tempted by Insiep's offer, but he wasn't so clueless as to not know if he was welcome or not. The only reason Insiep, an ordinary manager, was invited to this gathering was because he had broken his finger in the accident that day. It was clear that only a few key actors and staff members were invited to today's gathering. "It's fine. There will only be noble actors there anyway. And since the director called you, of course, you should." As Manager CHA was speaking, he heard his phone ringing and gestured to Insiep. "Check my phone there. The only person who calls me at this time is probably CEO Kim." "Who is a daughter of the devil?" "What?" Manager CHA almost stopped the car in the middle of the road. He swallowed hard and gestured for Inseep to take care of it. Ignore it, just silence it. It's my ex-wife. What? Just make sure the phone doesn't make any noise. Inseep remembered hearing that manager CHA's ex-wife was also CEO Kim's ex-wife. It seemed things weren't completely settled yet. Inseep, holding the phone, looked around, unsure of what to do. Lee Woo-yeon reached out and snatched the phone. I'll put it in the back. Oh, sorry, I answered it by mistake. Anyone could tell that it was a deliberate mistake. The sharp voice of a woman saying hello, hello, echoed in the car. Manager CHA reluctantly took the phone. Hello. Oh. I'm working. What? Why would I? Why should I go there? What? What did you say? His voice grew increasingly rough. Even after repeatedly shouting, why should I go there, it seemed to have no effect. After finishing the call, a look of all the world's worries settled on his face. Is something wrong? Inseep asked cautiously. Manager CHA, looking dejected, muttered. Don't ever get divorced, or better yet, never get married. Just live alone. That's the best way. After saying this, manager CHA added, sorry, but I have somewhere I need to go, so call for a substitute driver to take you home. Lee Woo-yeon, just bear with it for today. He looked back at Lee Woo-yeon, who gave an okay sign with his hand. They parked the car in the parking lot of the bar in Non-Hyundong where today's appointment was. Manager CHA handed the car keys to Inseep. If you don't want to call a substitute driver, take a taxi. Got it? Yes. Thank you for driving us. Inseep thanked him, and Lee Woo-yeon also nodded slightly from the back. Manager CHA saw a fleeting sneer in his eyes. Damn it. As Inseep disappeared into the building, manager CHA quietly grabbed Lee Woo-yeon's shoulder. Why did you do that? What? The phone. Lee Woo-yeon laughed with his eyes. If you didn't know his true nature, you would be compelled to admire his beauty. I told you, I hate that dance music. What? Goodbye. Lee Woo-yeon greeted the bewildered manager CHA and entered the building. Left alone, manager CHA was speechless and muttered as he walked out to catch a taxi, deciding to advise Inseep to think very, very carefully before signing the contract. As soon as Inseep entered the establishment, he was amazed at how much money it must have taken to rent out the entire place. The interior, mostly black with occasional blue highlights, was sleek and modern with clean lines and lighting that created a sophisticated atmosphere. Feeling overwhelmed by the ambience, Inseep wondered if he had come to the wrong place. Welcome. Your party is waiting inside, a waiter said, guiding them to a room in the back. You're here? How's your health? Those who had already taken their seats greeted Lee Woo-yeon and Inseep warmly. Thank you for your concern. I'm fine, Inseep replied politely and sat in the most inconspicuous spot by the door. Despite gestures for him to join them, he shook his head, insisting he was fine. As manager CHA had predicted, most of those present were actors. The few staff members included the camera director, lighting director, production director, and action director. Inseep quickly realized that he was there to receive an apology for his broken finger. Is my broken finger really that important? The horse that fell with me broke its leg and was euthanized without an apology. Inseep sat alone, head drooped in sadness. Someone suddenly sat down beside him, and Inseep continued to stare at his water glass. Does your hand hurt? Do you want me to take you home? It was Lee Woo-yeon. Inseep couldn't understand why Lee Woo-yeon, the star of the evening, wasn't sitting in the prime spot but rather by the door. Oh, why? The question on his lips seemed to be shared by everyone, as all eyes turned to him. It's easier to go in and out of the restroom, Lee Woo-yeon explained. Why? I can sit anywhere, right? What's the problem? Everyone might admire Lee Woo-yeon's unpretentiousness, but Inseep couldn't. Ever since that day, he felt that Lee Woo-yeon intentionally came close to him in this manner. Every time Li Wuyun's arm brushed against him or he bent down to whisper in his ear, Inseop's entire body tensed up. "What, already started?" a familiar yet unwelcome voice sounded from the doorway. Everyone stood up as Ken Yunmo entered. Li Wuyun also stood up to greet him. "It's been a while, Li Wuyun." Usually, Ken Yunmo would ignore Li Wuyun, but today, he warmly greeted him and even sat directly across from him. "So, I heard you got injured falling off a horse. Are you okay?" "Yes. Thank you for your concern." "And your manager, is he okay too?" "Yes," Inseop answered briefly, finding it awkward and uncomfortable to converse with Ken Yunmo. "The horse you were riding was a bit strange, wasn't it? You heard about that, right?" Ken Yunmo twirled his finger near his head. "Yes, roughly." Noticing Inseop's expression darken at the mention of the horse, Li Wuyun tried to steer the conversation away. But Ken Yunmo persisted. "It's bad luck that the horse you were riding was like that. Unfortunate." "Yes, it is," Li Wuyun said with a slight smile, drinking some water. The director, who had been seated in the place of honor, cleared his throat and glanced at Li Wuyun. "I heard you got injured. Are you all right?" "Yes, thanks to you." "Will it affect the filming? We can't afford delays with our tight schedule. Especially with you having the busiest schedule." "It won't be a problem," Li Wuyun replied calmly. "Just filming the drama every day often leaves no buffer of pre-filmed episodes, making it almost a live broadcast during airings. Currently, they shuttle between locations, grabbing quick naps, but soon, they'll barely have time for a quick shower at a nearby motel. Moreover, after the drama airs, the audience's reaction could change the filming schedule for the actors. Right now, Ken Yunmo has a bit more screen time according to the original script, but it's widely expected that this could flip once it airs, given Li Wuyun's reinterpreted character is so compelling. It's common knowledge that even the original author was thrilled after visiting the set and seeing Li Wuyun's portrayal. Li Wuyun was the busiest actor, so the filming schedule revolved around his availability. Ken Yunmo, already displeased with Li Wuyun, was particularly irritated that he had to adjust his schedule around Li Wuyun. "By the end of this week, I should be able to focus solely on filming," Li Wuyun said. "Let's hope no more strange accidents occur," Ken Yunmo remarked, asking the camera director where the restroom was. Everyone sighed in relief, thinking the topic had ended. "Li Wuyun sure is lucky," Ken Yunmo muttered as he left, smirking at Li Wuyun. Even Inseop, who often missed the subtleties of such remarks, could see it was a dig. People watched Li Wuyun's reaction, but he remained composed, seemingly unfazed, impressing everyone with his demeanor. In contrast, Ken Yunmo's poor attitude was well known. I tried to park, but there was another car in front, so I had to park elsewhere." Ken Yunmo's manager, Yoon Choljin, started but stopped upon realizing Ken Yunmo wasn't there. The camera director gestured for him to sit, but Yoon's face stiffened upon seeing Li Wuyun and Inseop. "Where did Mr. Ken go?" "To the restroom." "Oh, okay." Yoon quickly left, prompting the room to buzz with chatter. "He makes his manager call him sir, too. Can't you tell from his personality? He makes everyone, even his stylist, call him sir. If he wants to be called a sir so badly, he should have become a teacher, not an actor. Poor students, then." Laughter erupted. With a common enemy, the group easily bonded, venting frustrations about Ken Yunmo's behavior. "I need to use the restroom," Inseop quietly muttered, feeling he should inform the others, even though no one paid him much attention. Li Wuyun joked about going with him, and nearby people teased Inseop, saying he was lucky. Inseop hurriedly left, closing the door behind him. Phew. He felt suffocated. Not used to Korean gatherings, sitting near Li Wuyun and across from Ken Yunmo felt like sitting on pins and needles. He regretted not staying in the car. Seeking fresh air, Inseop walked to the terrace connected to the bar. As he reached for the door handle, a familiar voice stopped him. "What do we do now?" It was Yoon Choljin. Thinking he might be on the phone, Inseop tried to move away but froze upon hearing Kang Youngmo's annoyed voice. What do you mean, what do we do? Are you an idiot? Do you need to try shit to know it's shit? It was clear Kang Youngmo was scolding his manager, a scene often witnessed on set. However, what followed kept Inseop rooted to the spot. Still, I just feel bad. I thought it would end with just a fall. But Lee Woo-yeon's manager broke his finger and Lee Woo-yeon got hurt too. Gripping the door handle, Inseop listened intently. That's their bad luck. Stop whining. And the horse had to be put down. I feel bad about that. Are you stupid? It's just a horse. There's no evidence left behind from that drug. So, what can anyone do? Inseop recalled seeing Yoon Chul-jin hastily leaving the stable that day, feeling his blood boil. Kang Youngmo must have ordered something done to the horse. Inseop pushed the door open forcefully. I need to talk to you. Both men were visibly startled by Inseop's sudden appearance. As Yoon Chul-jin hesitated, Kang Youngmo signaled him to leave. Kang preferred handling the situation alone rather than risking his manager saying something incriminating. Yoon left, leaving Inseop and Kang Youngmo alone on the terrace. I'm busy, so whatever you have to say, make it quick, Kang Youngmo said, lighting a cigarette and blowing the smoke towards Inseop mockingly. Inseop calmed himself. I overheard your conversation and have some questions. Overheard? You mean eavesdrop like a rat? I didn't do it on purpose, but I apologize. His fingers felt cold. Inseop clenched and unclenched his fists behind his back, staring firmly at Kang Youngmo. What do you want to ask? You mentioned giving the horse some drug. What exactly did you give it? The horse? Oh, that horse. It was already messed up, Kang said, twirling his finger near his temple. No, the horse was fine when I saw it. You mentioned giving it something, which caused it to act strangely that day. Before he could finish, a sharp slap landed on his cheek. What are you talking about? I gave the horse drugs. I clearly heard it. Another, harder slap cut him off. The taste of blood filled his mouth, but he felt more anger than fear. What did you hear? Any proof? I heard it. Despite his defiant look, Kang Youngmo responded with a punch to his face, knocking Inseop to the ground along with the terrace table. What did you hear? You have no proof. Shit, you think you can accuse me without evidence? Are you out of your mind? Should I make sure you can't work in this industry anymore? Kang Youngmo's production company was one of the top 3 entertainment firms in the country, owned by his uncle. Despite his terrible attitude, no one could easily oppose him. Even CEO Kim had advised Lee Woo-yeon to avoid getting involved with Kang Youngmo. Inseop looked up and glared at Kang Youngmo. What are you staring at? The reins also snapped. You drugged the horse, didn't you? None of this was a coincidence. Kang Youngmo laughed loudly, leaning back. Ha! Do you think you're some great detective? You're really delusional. He slapped Inseop's face again, this time pressing his lit cigarette against Inseop's cast, making him wince in pain. Running your mouth without proof will get you seriously hurt. And it won't just be you, Lee Woo-yeon will suffer too. So, stop meddling. Kang Youngmo kicked Inseop's chin with his shoe before spitting and walking away. Inseop struggled to his feet, brushing off his clothes. His injured hand throbbed from supporting himself during the fall, and blood dripped from his nose onto his sleeve. Ah. Ooh. He tilted his head back but then remembered Lee Woo-yeon's advice that doing so would cause blood to run down his throat, so he leaned forward instead. Blood dripped between his fingers as he pinched his nose. Looking at the blood on the ground, Inseop wondered why he was even in Korea. His hand was torn, his finger broken, and now he was bleeding from a punch. Despite everything, he thought of Lee Woo-yeon worrying about him. I'm such an idiot. Tears threatened to fall as he realized how foolish he felt. He had planned to calmly confront Ken Yunmo about what he did to the horse, but he hadn't even managed to express himself properly. Knowing Ken Yunmo's temperament, he should have recorded their conversation. A person like me will never be able to catch someone's weakness or blackmail them in my entire life. Insiep thought of the grey-haired horse he had seen that evening. I'm sorry, Jenny. Because I'm such an idiot, I can't even bring justice to your unjust death. It has happened again. Tez wet his shoes. He stood there for a long time, and by the time his nosebleed had stopped, he left the terrace. So, did you come back to Korea after studying in the US, Woo-Yun Oppa? Yes, you could say that. Why did you come to Korea? Lee Woo-Yun sipped his drink and smiled silently. His father, unable to keep his son in a mental hospital because of social status and reputation, had sent him to Korea under the pretext of convalescence, requesting a distant relative of his mother to look after him. Someone like you needs to suffer to get a grip, he had said. Lee Woo-Yun, who had been living almost in captivity in a remote mountain area where it was amazing that electricity even reached, decided it was time to pull himself together. He knocked out the caretaker and came to Seoul. He went straight to an entertainment company and asked if they would make him an actor. That's the fucked up backstory that brought Lee Woo-Yun to where he was today. There's a rumor that your family opposed your acting, so you came to Korea. Is that true? It is true. My dad sent me away because I'm a crazy person. I almost went to jail for my insanity. Thanks to our prestigious family name, I was sent to a mental hospital instead of prison. Lee Woo-Yun kept these thoughts to himself, maintaining a gentle smile. What happened that day was an accident. His repressed true nature surfaced for a moment. It all started when an opponent, who had mocked him as a monkey and waved a banana before the match, deliberately kicked his shin during the match. Already in a foul mood and not performing well, that was the spark. After the match, he went to the opponent's locker room and beat him nearly to death. It sounded like a common teenage brawl, but it was horrifyingly brutal upon closer inspection. The opponent who provoked him was so injured that he lost the use of one hand and his cornea was so damaged he eventually lost his sight. The incident was so severe that it was considered a miracle he survived. In addition, other players who tried to stop Lee Woo-Yun were also injured, some severely enough to end their careers. Many thought he would end up in jail, but he was released under the pretense of being in a diminished mental state. This incident convinced Lee Woo-Yun that money could solve anything. Although, as he later learned, his condition was something even money couldn't fix. After undergoing various tests, he was diagnosed with a condition that required lifelong isolation. He recalled his mother's face as she calmly listened to the doctor's explanation that his inherent nature couldn't be changed. He habitually read multiple emotions in his mother's eyes: shame, anger, fear, sorrow, and despair. Don't you feel sad when people are hurt? Don't you understand why killing living creatures is wrong? Can't you comprehend the reason why hurting others is unacceptable? His mother had desperately asked him many times, holding his hands. Back then, having given up pretending to be good, he had honestly laughed and confessed his feelings. No, I'm not sad. I don't really know what sadness is. Why is it wrong to kill? It's just a nuisance. Whether they die or not doesn't matter to me. Ha ha. What's the big deal if they get hurt? People get injured in car accidents too, it's similar. Yes, I'm serious. Well, too bad, this is how I was born. We should just accept the things we can't change. His mother had dropped his hands as if shaking off something hideous. After the visit, she had attempted suicide at home. She couldn't accept that her son wasn't just sick but inherently a monster, a gift from the God she had dearly loved. Of course, it ended as a brief show, with her cutting her wrists lightly in the bathtub of their servant-filled house. But to his father, even that brief show was a significant event. When his father, who had become haggard within a few days, brought up the topic hesitantly, Lee Woo-Yun didn't show much reaction. He figured she wasn't serious about dying since she chose such a method, so he didn't worry. After some thought, he replied, then it seems she won't be able to play tennis for a while. His father stood up and left. That was the last interaction they had before he was sent to Korea. Is it true? Did you come to Korea to act? Li Wuyun's silence was taken as a yes, and she exclaimed, blinking her heavily mascaraed eyelashes. So the rumor is true. That's so cool. The actress sitting next to Li Wuyun was a member of a famous idol group, cast in the drama by her agency for a minor role. Clinging to Li Wuyun and asking him various questions, no one tried to stop her, though they found it rude. They were all equally curious about Li Wuyun's past. Is there such a rumor? Li Wuyun asked, pretending to be surprised. Of course. There's another one. What was it? Oh, right. There's a rumor that your family is some kind of noble family. But that's a lie, right? There's no nobility in the US. Technically, his grandfather had British noble blood, but since Li Wuyun was a stepson from his mother's remarriage, he didn't belong to that lineage. He laughed weakly and agreed, yeah, right. Do you have a girlfriend, Oppa? She glanced around nervously before grabbing his arm and asking coyly. Li Wuyun, finding her quite cunning, pulled his hand away and pretended to check his phone. He had a message from his manager. Li Wuyun had been thinking of checking on Inseop, who hadn't returned from the restroom. The smile faded from his lips as he read the message. Oppa, where are you going? I need to step out for a moment. He politely excused himself and stood up. In the restroom, Inseop was startled by his reflection. His lips were split, and his cheek was swollen and red, making it clear he had been hit. Unable to return to the table, he texted Li Wuyun that he would wait in the car. He reclined the seat and lay down, music playing softly. Tears rolled down as he thought of Jenny, who was no longer in this world. I couldn't protect you, I couldn't do anything for you. He wanted to run back to the gathering and shout, Ken Youngmo drugged the horse. He's the one responsible for the broken reins too. He's a bad person. But he had no proof. He had learned all too well how this world worked in such a short time. If he told Li Wuyun he had been hit, their relationship would become awkward, and it would disrupt the drama's filming. Naturally, Inseop would be fired. It wasn't the fear of being fired that bothered him. It was his own helplessness, his inability to resolve anything. He hated that all he could do was sit in the car and cry like a child. Should I just leave? Go back to America? Live my life tending Jenny's grave, repenting for the rest of my life. Jenny. He whispered the name that would never answer, closing his eyes. Jenny, 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 Jenny. I miss you, my only friend. Someone knocked on the car window. Startled, Inseop sat up and rolled down the window. I'll move the car. He was about to explain about the double parking when he saw an unexpected figure outside. Why are you here? I'm tired. Inseop was relieved he hadn't turned on the car lights. The dim parking lot lighting wouldn't reveal his injuries. Yeah, you've been losing sleep lately. I'd love to sleep beside you too. Inseop sighed internally as Li Wuyun laughed casually. But his next words made Inseop's heart sink. Who did this to you? What? Your face. I fell. Li Wuyun reached into the car. The sight of his pale hand approaching in the dark was terrifying. Inseop tried to pull back, but Li Wuyun grabbed his chin. Examining his face like an object, Li Wuyun murmured, You didn't get hurt like this from a fall. Looks like someone hit you. Inseop hesitated, considering whether to tell Li Wuyun about the incident with Ken Youngmo. But he shook his head, keeping his mouth shut. I fell down the stairs and got hurt. Li Wuyun cupped Inseop's cheek with his cold hand, making Inseop's heart race in fear. I don't like it when you get hurt. What? I don't like it. Not knowing how to respond, Inseop stammered an apology, I'm sorry. If you're sorry, be more careful. Yes. Go home. I'll take a taxi. Tell manager CHA about the car. No, it's fine. Li Wuyun's eyes softened. Go. It was an unmistakable command, even though it sounded like a suggestion. Inseop nodded reluctantly. While waiting for the village bus after getting off the subway, Inseop took out his phone. It was time for his family in the US to prepare breakfast. Even though it wasn't the day he had promised to call, he dialed the number. After a few rings, his mother's sleepy voice answered. "Is that you, Peter?" Hearing his mother's voice, Inseop felt a lump in his throat. "Peter? Peter? Can you hear me?" "I can hear you." He managed to reply. "You scared me. How is it there? Is it night time? Is work tough? Are you eating well?" Inseop recalled reading in a magazine about Korean culture that the question, "Have you eaten?" was an essential greeting, not just at mealtimes but even late at night or early morning. He realized this wasn't unique to Korea. His mother always worried about his meals, asking if he was eating well every time they spoke. Inseop answered, "Yes, of course," and sat down on the bench at the bus stop. "Why are you calling at this hour? Is something wrong?" his mother asked. "No, everything's fine. I just wanted to hear your voice," Inseop replied. Since coming to Korea, Inseop had kept his calls to once every 3 days, as promised to his father. He had also set this rule for himself, fearing that more frequent calls would weaken his resolve. "Is nothing wrong?" His mother sounded worried, likely sensing the sadness in his voice. "No, nothing at all. How is everyone doing?" "Everyone's fine. Your father is sleeping next to me. Do you want to talk to him?" "No, it's okay. I'll call tomorrow as planned. I just wanted to hear your voice." Though she wasn't his biological mother, Inseop had never considered her anything less than his real mother. She loved and treated him just like her own children. Her mere presence was a comfort to him now. "Mom," Inseop paused before continuing, "do you think I should come back to America?" "Of course, this is your home. Come back whenever you want, anytime." Hearing his mother's warm voice, Inseop couldn't hold back his tears. The pain from his injuries was unbearable. He wanted to rush to Incheon Airport, buy a ticket, and fly back to America immediately. People waiting for the bus nearby glanced at him. A man speaking fluent English and crying was bound to draw attention. "If it's too hard, come back right now. Don't worry about anything, okay? I have to go now. I'll call you tomorrow. I love you." He quickly ended the call, afraid that if he talked any longer, he would break down and spill everything that had happened. "I can't do that. I need to pull myself together. I'll go home, take a warm shower, water Kate, and read my favorite book. That should make me feel better. Yeah, everything will be okay." Inseop wiped his tears with his palm and put his phone back in his pocket. He realized he still had the van's keys. Manager CHA would need the keys to bring the van tomorrow. He should have left them at the parking booth, but he had brought them with him in his haste. Inseop got up and headed back towards the subway entrance. As he retraced his steps, he thought about what to do next. According to his plan, he would be fired in about a month and a half, then he would take the evidence of Lee Woo-yeon's affairs to America and submit it to a newspaper. He had already bought a plane ticket, intending to finish everything within that time frame. But now, he might have to sign a 3-year formal contract with Lee Woo-yeon, which he desperately wanted to avoid. He didn't think he could endure being by Lee Woo-yeon's side for that long. What should I do? If I leave now, I can't face Jenny. I can't stay by Lee Woo-yeon's side. I miss my family and want someone to lean on, but my resolve is weakening. Should I just leave? Inseop mumbled to himself as he passed through the subway gate. Hearing his mother's voice had intensified his desire to return to America. He thought about the evidence he had of Lee Woo-yeon's complicated relationships. Submitting it to a newspaper would create a stir, but it wouldn't bring Lee Woo-yeon down. Unlike female celebrities, the media was lenient with male celebrities' love lives. If Lee Woo-yeon held a press conference, claiming it was all a misunderstanding and they were just friends, it would cause a temporary uproar but eventually blow over. Li Wuyan was known not just for his image but also for his talent. Inseop sighed. Watching Li Wuyan up close, he knew he was a perfect actor. While it might tarnish his image, Inseop had to admit that he couldn't bring down Li Wuyan as an actor. Unless something drastic happened within the next month and a half to expose Li Wuyan as a terrible person, nothing would change. Winning the lottery has better odds, Inseop muttered as he walked. He remembered CEO Kim lamenting how perfect Li Wuyan was at maintaining his image. While Li Wuyan might make mistakes in his personal life, the chances of something happening within the next month and a half were nearly zero. He must have gone home by now, Inseop thought, checking his phone. He had heard that the gathering would end early because they had to film early the next morning. The plan was to eat, drink a little, and then disperse. That's why Inseop had agreed to stay until the end, but Li Wuyan had told him to go home with a scary face, so he had no choice but to leave. Inseop hoped that everyone had gone home by now. He didn't want to run into Ken Youngmo or his manager today. Although he would have to see them on set tomorrow, he wanted to avoid them tonight. Hoping the gathering had ended, Inseop walked back. The place where they had met was in a quiet area away from the bustling streets, so the closer he got, the fewer people there were. Was it around here? He looked around. It was darker than he remembered, and most of the signs were off, making it hard to find his way. He recalled a flower shop and a coffee shop next to each other on this street. As he retraced his steps, he noticed a silver Bentley. Checking the license plate, he confirmed it was Ken Youngmo's car. The thought of Ken Youngmo being nearby made him frown. In his short life, he had never met anyone with such a nasty personality. If he had to expose Ken Youngmo's bad deeds, he could gather evidence in less than a week. Inseop decided to avoid the car by taking a detour through a side alley. It would take longer, but it was better than running into Ken Youngmo in a deserted area. I'm avoiding him because he's dirty, not because I'm scared. Ken Youngmo is like shit. Saying it out loud made him feel slightly better. Inseop muttered shit a few more times as he walked. Shouting such vulgar words alone in the empty street oddly improved his mood. No wonder people found swearing therapeutic. That bastard, Ken Youngmo, is shit. He was about to continue when he heard a strange sound, like an animal's cry. He stopped and listened. If it was an injured animal, he wanted to help and take it to the vet. But after standing still for a while, he heard nothing. Did I hear wrong? He was about to resume walking when he heard a dull thud, followed by a groan. It wasn't an animal's cry, it was a person's moan. Realizing this sent a cold shiver down his spine. What's going on? Is someone being attacked? Should I call 911? Where is this happening? Should I find the person first or call the police? Inseop pulled out his phone. He wanted to find the source of the noise and call the police if necessary. Then he saw someone emerging from between two buildings. The man threw something to the ground. It was a wallet. A robber. I'm witnessing a robbery. Inseop instinctively hid behind a car. His hands shook as he raised his phone to take a picture of the man. He had modified his phone to take silent, flash-free photos for secretly capturing pictures of Li Wuyan. Taking photos of the man, Inseop froze as the man stepped into the moonlight. It was Li Wuyan, wearing a cold, calm expression. He smiled a satisfied smile, his white teeth gleaming in the darkness, looking far from human. Inseop's whole body trembled. The man before him didn't seem like the Li Wuyan he knew. Unsure of what was happening, he watched from behind the car in fear. Li Wuyan glanced around, looking like a predator satisfied with its meal, and walked to the end of the alley. Inseop didn't move until he was sure Li Wuyan was gone, his footsteps fading into the distance. When Li Wuyan was completely out of sight, Inseop cautiously emerged from behind the car. He picked up the wallet, using his sleeve to cover his fingers. He could be mistaken. Maybe Li Wuyan had accidentally dropped his own wallet. But Li Wuyan used a black leather wallet, not a brown one. Maybe he had another wallet he got tired of and threw away. Inseop's mind raced with possibilities. He slowly opened the wallet with trembling hands. Inside was an ID card. He took it out and saw a familiar face. Ua. A painful groan came from the alley. Insiep knew who it was without seeing his face. Ken Youngmo. Before he could finish calling his name, Insiep realized the gravity of the situation. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The biting wind brought him back to reality, but everything still felt surreal. The cold touch of his phone in his hand grounded him. Insiep was holding a weakness against Li Wuyan. Warm sunlight poured through the window like honey. Peter chuckled at the sound of someone clattering up the stairs. Before his smile faded, Jenny burst into the room, her face alight with excitement. Peter. Don't you knock. We don't need to knock. This is huge. What is it? Peter sat up groggily. He had been feverish last night and had trouble sleeping, but Jenny's cheerful voice lifted his spirits. Ta da. She pulled out a letter from her pocket. What's that? A reply from the prince. What? Unbelievable, right? I couldn't believe my eyes when I found this in my locker. She waved the cream-colored envelope, her eyes sparkling. Peter stared at the letter in her hand, bewildered. Is it real? Of course. Want to read it together?